Hi everyone, so we busy with illustrative example 2, which really flows from the previous concept of the production budget, and in this video or in this example we're doing the raw material purchases. The required year is calculate the budget of the raw material purchases for September, and as you'll remember from the previous video, we first need to know what our sales demand is, and then once we know what our sales demand is, we will figure out how much we need to produce. And once we know how much we need to produce in terms of a finished item, we therefore will know how much raw materials we need to purchase in order to have that finished item. And that's really this example. So it says Chani Curios CC purchases unprocessed wood and then reworks it into ornaments for resale to tourists at a popular tourist destination such as Table Mountain and the Kruger National Park. Selling prices are directly related to the physical size of the ornaments and are expressed in terms of kilograms sold. And then it says the sales budget for the period September to November is as follows. So September to November is 2,000 in September, 2,400 in October, and 2,500 in November, and it's all in kilograms. And then it says the basic raw material costs 200 per kilogram of wood. The raw material scrap is 20% of raw material input. So in other words, basically 20% of what gets input is going to be scrapped. So effectively we have to input more to get what we desire out. Right. Then if that makes sense. So we have to input 20% more because we know 20% is going to be scrapped. The target month-end raw material is 600 plus 20% of the raw materials required for the next month's production. Okay, so month end just means the closing inventory of raw material must be 600 plus 20% of the next month, and the target month end inventory level of finished good is 800 plus 20% of the next month's budgeted sales. Now, I just want to stop there and it's important to just remember two things. That we have raw material. In other words, if we are making a can of Coke, we have the aluminium or the material that the Coke can is made out of. That's the raw material, right? But a finished Coke can is a finished good. So in stock at the end of the year, we can have the material of the Coke can, and we can have the physical finished items of Coke. So that's two different aspects of raw material, which is really what we have here. We have finished goods as well as raw material. And remember, we ultimately sell finished goods to customers, right? So finished goods is linked to sales, whereas we need a certain amount of raw material to be completed to make a finished good. Right, so you'll see the required asks for September. Okay, now the important thing to remember here is that just to bear in mind, we have 3 months, and even though the required ask for September, we still need to plot 3 months because of these following items. Is that we need month-end inventory is 20% of the next month for raw material as well as for finished goods. So we need the next month in order to be able to calculate the closing inventory. However, we also need the previous month in order to calculate the opening inventory. And so therefore you'll see in the solution we have effectively 4 months. And as we run through the solution now, you'll see why we have 4 months. Okay, so firstly starting with finished goods, which is a completed good. So remember, finished goods is linked to sales. So we'll start every month. There needs to be base inventory of 800, right, plus 20% of next month's, and it's set for finished goods. It must be 20% of next month's budgeted sales. So if I look at September, it's 800 Rand. That is the base because they're saying that, and 20% of next month. So in September I need 20% of October, and October sales is 2,400. So 20% of 2,400 is 480. So therefore I need 800 plus 480, which means at the end of September in finished goods I must have 1,280. Alright, and likewise for October I need 800 plus 20% of November, which is 500, and so at the end of November I need 1,300 in closing inventory for October. And if we have a look at this in terms of a T account, because this table is sometimes confusing, so if we look at the T account, closing inventory for September, there the 1,280, right, is effectively, remember as I said before, you have the, on your credit side you have the closing balance as well as the sales, so the 2,000 sales and the 1,280 closing balance. Alright, then in terms of the opening balance, to get the opening balance, because we're in September, this is why we needed to draw August as well, because we need August effectively to get the opening balance for September. Alright, and we needed October because we needed to get the 20% of next month's sales for October. Alright, so the opening inventory is effectively August's closing inventory. Now August is also the base of 800 plus 20% of next month's sales, which comes to 480, and that gives you the, sorry, August is 800 base and 20% of next month, which if you're in August, the next month will be October, and so 20% of, sorry, which would be September, and 20% of September would be 400 units, and that gives you the 1,200. So if we then deduct the 1,200, we will get the 2,080. And just to show you that it's 2,000 sales to 1,280 closing stock, 3,280. If finished goods is 1,200, then raw materials used for finished goods must be the 2,080. Alright, and then if 2,080 eventually ends up in finished goods, that means the raw material, if we look at the raw material account, so remember raw material is also inventory. It increases on this side and decreases on that side. So what effectively this means, when you decrease raw material, you take it from, either gets spoiled or you take it to finished goods. So we know that 2,080, the contra account of that must be the raw material account. Alright, but what we also know is this 2,080 is what was effectively good units, right? But there was bad units, and so what we have to then say, well, is that if you take the 2,080, effectively represents 80%, right? Now 80%, this 2,080 is 80% of that, so that means if you divide this by 80%, you'll get to 2,600. So in other words, the total raw material used was 2,600, however 520 was spoiled and 2,080 was actually used in production. Okay, so effectively we used 2,600 worth of raw material, however 520 of that was spoiled and 2,080 was used in production. And so just a reminder of how we got to that 2,080, it's effectively the 520, it's 2,080 divided by 80%, that gives you 26, and 26 times by 20% gives you the 520, and these two added together must be the 26. Right. Then we are also told that the desired closing inventory is, for raw materials, is 20% for the next month's production, So the next month, so if we are in September, right, the base is 600, sorry, the base is 600 plus 20% for the next month. So in the next month, the $605, and this is why we had to do October, is basically we effectively do the same thing for the same thing that we did with the 2080 over here. Okay, so just a reminder of how we got the 2080. We said sales plus closing minus opening gives us 2080. We divide by 80%, and we got the 2080 and the 520. We're going to effectively have to do the same thing for the next month, which is October. So we would say for October, the October sales of 2,400 plus the closing balance of 1,300 minus the opening inventory, gives us 2,420. Right, and then 20% of the full production was spoiled, so we will take the 2,420 divided by 80%, which gives us a 3,025, which means 605 must have been spoiled. Okay, but 3,025 is the units that was required for production, of which 20% was spoiled, and so 20% in terms of the inventory that's needed for the next month, 20% of the 3,025 is 605, and when we add 605 to the 600, that gives us the 1,205, which is the closing inventory of raw materials for September. The 1,205. We know the opening inventory is 1,120, okay, which comes from the previous month. Basically applying the same principle, we get the opening inventory of 1,120, and then therefore we get the raw material purchases that needs to be 2,685, okay, in order for this T account to balance. And so that means we need to buy raw material of 2,685. It costs us 200 per kilogram, so the raw material purchases will be 537. Alright, I'll see you guys. So that's it for this week, and then next week we're going to do a recap video on the long question. So please attempt the long question. It's similar to this last two examples. If you have any questions, post it on the discussion forum. Have a look at the videos again. Read the notes in the textbook. Yeah, make use of the support that's available. Thanks, guys. Cheers.